Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is 382 pages long and with 44 chapters. This book is a sci-fi fantasy novel set on Mars in the future. I originally thought it was a standalone book, which is it's a series, which is okay. It's not a problem. It's just not what I was expecting. This is space colonization, right? The societies that worked for Earth don't work in space. And so a class system emerges based on hair and eye color. There is the golds that end up being the leaders, and there's even different classifications within each color. But yeah, the main character, Darrow, is red, and he is a miner. They mine under the surface on Mars for helium. The helium helps with the terraforming of Mars and making it more habitable. The reds don't interact with many other colors. There is grays, which are like police, and browns are part of the bureaucracy. They help manage all the day-to-day things. They rarely see golds, and blacks are the warriors. So they're really, really low on the totem pole. And this kicks off with the main character, who is approximately 16, and his wife is also 16. They get into trouble, and the punishment is whippings. So it all kind of escalates from there. And really, this is a book about political revolution, but it's styled a little bit more like The Hunger Games. And I did enjoy this book. I will be reading the rest of the series. And what I did like about it is the author does a really good job of giving you details and descriptions that get used later. And there were times where a twist happened, and I felt like, oh man, I read that. I should have known that. I remember reading that just a few chapters ago, and really, like, all the tools, the mysteries and stuff, all the pieces of the puzzle are there. So that, I really enjoyed that. That made me feel like I was still there and engaged in the story. There are other worlds besides Mars. There's most of the planets of the solar system, except for, I think, the gas giants. Another thing I liked was the mining suits that they used were called fry suits, and it literally bubbles away. So there's different layers, I think 2 or 3 layers, and it just bubbles away like you would picture. I don't know. I don't have any material that bubbles. I'm not a chemist. I don't get stuff that hot, but it just was really neat, the smell and the texture and the idea that, the spacesuit just kind of dissolves. So that was really cool. In addition to mining, the Reds also harvest spider silk to design clothes and build stuff. Really cool. And the last thing that I thought was really neat is there's a class of purple artists. And I wasn't sure if those are born that way. Like, all the classes seem to be you're born that way, but the purples, I wasn't sure if it was a choice or if they are indeed born that way. And they mention there's a white color. They mention them a few times, but we didn't really see much of them in this book, which is okay. I realized that once I realized this was part of a series and they're building up to the series. So that was really cool too. So the things I didn't like, there was a lot of violence in this, which is intended, right? You're competing and that kind of thing. But I don't know. It was more than I was expecting. I wasn't sure what to expect, and there was just a lot of it. It kind of tugged at your heartstrings in the opening, and that's what helps get you to root for the main character. But at the same time, it was like, wow, that was just pretty brutal. There were 2 times where I was worried about jumping the shark. It didn't take me out of the story. It actually made me want to keep reading to see what happens next. There was the main character gets hanged at one point. And so, it's a series, so of course it continues on, and I won't give the details, but it made me want to read more to find out. And then the other one was when the main character says, it's just like capture the flag, referring to the Hunger Games type game. And I I was just kind of like cringed inside. It was just kind of like a cliche, but it was just a passing conversation. It wasn't like a critical thing to the storyline. So kept going, and I'm glad I did. So I didn't like those two things, but you know, and another thing I didn't like was there's a lot of characters in this book, like a lot of characters, and really that is the story building, the world building, setting the stage for the next book. And having going into it knowing that there's a series, it makes a difference instead of like, wow, they just introduced a bunch of characters that we'll probably only read for this chapter. So a lot of this was my mindset, didn't know what to expect and going into it. So absolutely check out this book. I will continue this series absolutely. When I wasn't reading, this book occupied my thoughts a lot. I couldn't wait to find out what would happen next. I really just enjoyed the whole thing. And I mentioned Hunger Games, but it's much more than that. There's more facets to it, there's more dynamics. There is, of course, more politics, but really it's wrapped in, you know, a sci-fi adventure. So it's not, the politics don't get in the way. They are there at the forefront, but they don't, in my mind, get in the way. So, yep. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Great book. I recommend it, and buy your books used if you can.